Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session on ecological impact on sustainability. The previous session, for the people that were here, we talked about an impact we want to maximize, namely social impact. Here we're going to talk about an impact we want to minimize, the ecological impact of events. I'm joined on stage by two experts in the matter, Claire O'Neill and Maya Leije. Maybe first Claire, CEO and co-founder of the international not-for-profit A Greener Future. She's a pioneer in sustainability for events, establishing a greener future following research she carried out in 2005. Since then, she has worked with world-leading events, venues and artists, including Hold Your Horses, Massive Attack, the O2 Arena, Glastonbury Festival, Wembley Stadium, the UEFA Champions League and Forest Green Rovers. So Claire also organizes the Green Events and Innovations Conference and advises live music industry bodies throughout Europe. She really is the queen of sustainability in Europe. We're very pleased to have her. So please welcome Claire. An applause. Maya, you're head of CSR at cycling organizer Flanders Classics, where after starting as an all-rounder, she was given the opportunity to specialize in equality and sustainability. And this role, she leads the Closing the Gap project, which focuses on equal opportunities and greater visibility for women's cycling. She was also appointed sustainability advisor for the 2021 World Cycling Championships in Flanders and the 2024 European Cycling Championships in Limburg, where she developed strategies to reduce the ecological impact. She strongly believes that sport can be both competitive and conscious. So, yes, welcome, Maya. So, what we're going to do in this session, we're going to talk about sustainability, but we're going to dive into the concrete case of the 2024 Road European Championships in Limburg. For Dutch-speaking people, who het EK wielrennen. To discuss how events can become more ecologically sustainable. But first a question to Claire. For people that don't know you, can you please explain how you founded A Greener Future and what it is that you do exactly?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for the intros as well. We started 20 years ago, and initially it was for festivals. We'd seen that festivals were a place that could be really transformative, and therefore they were a really important space for caring for ecology in all different ways. But also they could have positive or negative impacts in that space. So they could influence things in a positive way by showing different ways of doing things, but they could also have negative impacts such as waste, diesel, beef burger vans and so on, and the transport of people getting there. So I did the research. We then set up an award scheme, which then became a certification, which was called the Greener Festival Awards. That certification started in 2007, and it has grown and built over the years to then be a certification for events, for arenas, venues, all different types of suppliers as well. And the aim of it is to try to get every part of the live ecosystem moving in the same direction. But meanwhile, we also became consultants because of all of the knowledge that we gained over those years. We do CO2 analysis, the Green Events and Innovations Conference, and use that space not only to try and keep our house in order, whether it be that with artists or with major events or whatever it may be, but also to then provide a platform that's, I suppose, what would you call it? A platform of integrity that artists or athletes, etc., can speak from when we're trying to deal with countering some of the cultural narratives that are problematic at the moment.
Yeah, what I think it's interesting with your work is that you started off in the festival world, but then you branched out to actually the whole events industry and sports as well, so that's really interesting.
Yeah, something we found with the festivals was we'd get to the main stage or the main production area, the headline artists that were coming in, and it was like the holy land that you weren't allowed to touch. So even if a festival was really on board with sustainability initiatives, that was like the no-go area. But then conversely, working with artists and agents, we found some of them really wanted festivals to do more. So we thought, well, if we can get these two kind of calling it from different directions, then we're going to make more change. And that's what we've seen really manifest, for instance, with the Massive Attack shows on the Downs last year. But then there's also kind of silos, but less and less between like TV and film production, sports events, music events. But we're all kind of dealing with the same problems, so it makes sense for us to come together.
Yeah. And maybe people in the venue might have read that Paradise City was voted the most sustainable festival in the world. That's because of certification from A Greener Future. So you work on different sustainability dimensions. You do consultancy work as well. Can you quickly talk us through the most important ones, and then focusing, I have the slide here actually, and focusing on the ecological ones, because you do analyze more than just the ecological dimension of sustainability, but we'll focus on this session on the ecological ones.
Yeah, so we take a holistic approach, but then based upon, I guess if we're looking at the ecological elements, there's some that are heavier weighted than others. And those would be largely travel and transport, food, waste in the case of events, even though if you look at it from a CO2 perspective, it's not the highest, but from I suppose, the circularity, the image, it's a really significant element. And then also the local environments. You mentioned that ecology is something that we're trying to reduce the impacts. We can actually increase the positive impacts as well.
Yeah.
So there's some event spaces where by bringing the energy of that event, and by the energy that might be that you've brought water to a space, or you've brought people and hands and human power to a space, or you've brought money to a space. That means you can really make improvements and leave places better than you found them. And we see more and more events that have either their own event site or the relationships that they mean that they can take a longer term view in their spaces and really making improvements. But on waste, energy and food, they're the ones where we can make really big differences very quickly. So when we do a certification, they would be quite heavily weighted in our assessment on these different elements, although they're all important and take precedence.
It's good that you point out that the positive aspect you can have as well. We try to say like you only can, you have to minimize it. But I remember actually at your conference, seeing a presentation by Boom Festival in Portugal, where they kind of built these big water reservoirs for the festival goers, but actually the water is being used by the local community throughout the year. So it's kind of, you can actually improve for the site for everybody.
Yeah, they're a great example of ecological restoration, and their water system that they first built, which was a smaller one, it's in a really dry place, even though it's on the edge of a lake, and they ended up increasing the frog population, started to come back, and you can see all these butterflies, and then they'd also decorated it really beautifully, and all the plants growing through it, this kind of filtration system. It's not what you'd normally think of as a wastewater treatment facility, but it's beautiful and replicating nature, so there's so much that can be done that's more than just reducing impacts.
Yeah. Maya, sorry, you haven't been able to talk yet, but we'll come to you. So you collaborated with Claire and A Greener Future for the 2024 European Cycling Championships in Limburg. Before we dive into the specifics of that collaboration, let's just watch a little video you made specifically for the sustainability actions that you took. Great. Actually, Claire, you were there at the event as well. I remember your train was delayed, and you only managed. You had to leave after an hour.
It might have been less than an hour, but it was a beautiful hour that I'll never forget.
Maya, can you explain what you did together with A Greener Future, how your sustainability plan came about, and then what the most important aspects of it was?
Sure, but first of all, I would like to mention my colleague Zoe Vindevogel, who is down the room. She was the dedicated sustainability manager and truly the driving force behind the European Road Championships in 2024, so thank you for that. For such a project in regards to the process, we always start by setting up a working group with all of the many stakeholders involved. Obviously, Flanders Classics as being the local organizing committee, but also the people of Event Flanders. We have the host cities, we have the province. So we always like to bring those people together to touch base frequently. Then we also appoint a dedicated sustainability manager who's really the coordinator of the entire project. Then we start working on a comprehensive sustainability plan, obviously tailored on the needs and challenges of the event. Once that's done, for this event, for example, we ended up with 10 different themes, such as Claire already said, energy, focusing on waste management, on mobility, transportation, and 100 action points to actually make that
100.
happen. Yeah. Yeah. Some more visible than others, obviously. We also draft a sustainability charter that our partners and our suppliers get information, and those are sustainability measurements that they need to execute on events. So yeah, and then A Greener Future came along. They evaluated the plan on site through a detailed self-assessment. They also measured the carbon footprint, and this was all compiled in a very detailed report with very useful feedback for us that definitely is a blueprint for the upcoming events at Flanders Classics. So, thank you.
Great. So I hear like a dedicated coordinator. I think that's something that's very important. You have a working group, like a sustainability working group, where all the different stakeholders involved. And so you came up with a plan, and then you kind of need to implement the plan. Like, how easy is it to implement a plan in reality, and what are the challenges that you encounter?
It's not easy, I can tell you. I've been doing it for a couple of events, and yeah, I think for me personally, it's the biggest challenge there is.
Because on paper it can look great.
Yeah, and you've got, sustainability for an event has impact on every single stakeholder and every single department, on every single member of your organization. Everyone needs to be on that same mindset, needs to be involved, aligned, motivated, which is sometimes not that easy. And then getting everyone motivated, aligned, and that alignment executed on site is even more difficult, I think, because I remember Zoe and I walking around the day before in the morning of the event, and then you bump into suppliers who didn't follow the charter, and then you're like, oh my God, what's happening here? Then you do a few phone calls and it gets set right, but...
even though they got the charter, they signed it?
Exactly, but it gets lost in translation because so many people, we make agreements with the supplier, but then they brief a coordinator, and then the people on site are often, not the people that once got the message. So yeah, I think that's one of the most important key learnings there, to have someone, a dedicated person who can actually follow up, can brief them beforehand and make sure on site that everything gets executed the way it should.
Yeah, and maybe not wait until the end of the event to kind of evaluate, but
exactly, you need
day
to be,
one you can actually still change things.
You just need to be there, and yeah, definitely. So.
Claire, in your opinion, because you obviously help a lot of organizations, this step from plan to implementation to reality, how do you see that? What are the main challenges there? How can you overcome them?
Yeah, so I think for sports events especially, starting with when a federation connects with an event organizer, which is something that's different from the music world where generally the promoter has kind of got a handle on stuff. But the federations tend to have one policy, and then an event team might have another, and they're not necessarily joined up. So that's kind of the first strategic level if it's that type of major event with lots of different agencies. But then what we've experienced, to take an example of food traders, which is probably one of the more complicated areas, because you might have an overall tech production management company, for instance, so you've got a direct route of communication. With traders, you often have lots of different ones, and especially if it's an open perimeter event as well. So then it's getting the buy-in from the heads of those different departments first, so including them in, let's say, your food charter, for example. If you're going to have a food charter for traders, get them involved, get their input, rather than just passing it to them and forcing it on them, because then you're more likely to get resistance. We've then hosted previously like trader meetings.
Okay.
Again, I'm just using the trader example. You could do this across all departments. So that they have the opportunity to express their concerns or their ideas as well, and then the traders themselves start to feel like they're a part of what you're trying to produce. Regardless of how much advanced planning you do, you will always need a Zoe and a team to back Zoe up to actually check that things are being put in place on site. But what we have found is that, I talked earlier about trying to get all the different parts of the industry moving to the same tune from their own perspectives. We then see that things start to become business as usual. So to give an example, again with traders, we've requested 100% compostable, reusable serveware. And at first, in the first few years, this is just like a complete mess, and you've got all sorts of different things all over the place. But as more events start to request that, they just start to order that as standard as part of their stock anyway. And so it becomes the norm rather than the exception. And the more that the events can have a similar kind of tune to sing to, like I said, the less that every individual supplier or volunteer or trader is going to be going in and being told a whole new bunch of rules and regulations. That's where the harmonization really helps.
Yeah. I think the aspect of, because you can send charters and people can sign it, but then you don't know how thoroughly they've been through it, and having that discussion, I think, is really
important. You have to have a bit of carrot and stick as well.
Yeah.
So some people won't
Carrot
respond to altruism.
Right. Maya, just to make it concrete, so can you give us a few examples of new initiatives that you took for this event that you hadn't done in the past or hadn't done as well in the past for this event?
So we really focused on reducing catering and materials, single-use plastics.
Yeah.
So we had been using with reusable cups for several. With reusable cups for several years, but for the championships, we worked with reusable catering materials for the first time. So for food,
okay.
Which was quite challenging in all different areas of the event. So VIP zones, but also the crew hub, and mainly the fan zones. So that was a big change for us, but it worked really well. We were really happy with the result. And then you see naturally that you don't have a lot of waste left. Like if you don't have the single-use plastics, you don't have anything from food. It worked really well. So that was one thing we did. Another thing we did was really diving, and it's maybe a bit connected with the previous group of people on the podium, but with the local social impact. So we worked together with Ocasi and Creasi, a guy named Roman, great guy, and he organized second-hand furniture for the crew hub, for our offices. Really? They decorated everything with recycled materials. They also recycled our materials afterwards. So they have a creative workshop where schools and local people can go and just get some stuff to be creative. So that was a great project we did. We also had a sandwich station with every crew member or volunteer got a reusable lunchbox.
Yeah.
So they could just pack their sandwiches. It's actually really basic if you think about it, but it makes a huge impact. Reusable drinking waters, water stations from Roby all over the place. So those were things. In regards to mobility, we also designed a cycling route from the start to the finish, so it was really easy to come by bike. And we noticed during the event that actually a lot of people came by bike. We wanted to do a Thursday veggie day, but that was one of the things that accidentally went wrong when we noticed that the caterer had some meat with him on Thursday. But
did you have more vegetarian food than you would normally?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. So there we also made a big change.
That's a big one often.
Just on that, the food, the going plant-based, we found on a number of shows, it's reduced the impact of a food by about 90% when you take especially red meat off the menu. And so being able to increase the plant-based amount is one of the most significant things. But then rather than saying you are not allowed meat, you are having like vegan, for example. We've done things like the food lineup. So as you release artists, you release details about the different traders and menus, and you're talking about what is there and what is really delicious and great rather than what's being taken away.
And that's, I'm just picking in here. I think it's really great in the festival industry and music industry that you got an engagement from artists, because that's something I'm slightly missing in the cycling industry, is we don't really have ambassadors.
Or champions,
not
somebody,
as yet champions.
Must be some.
There's Madeleine Royster, for example. She's a Swiss cyclist, and she tries to do everything by train. And she's one of the few. But I think that would be great if from the federations and the athletes also this message comes. That would be a big help for us, I think.
Yeah, I think that's maybe where it's a little bit easier in the music industry or in the festival industry where you have champions there.
I always thought that, but then you mentioned Forest Green Rovers, who we've worked with, which is a football club in the UK, and that football club has been vegan for 10 years. And if a football club can do it, then I think anybody can do it. And they initially were like in the paper, the great red meat ban of Forest Green Rovers, and they've ended up with like fan clubs all around the world. They've increased their ticket sales so much, and more people eat there, because it used to be crappy food and now it's really great food. So if anyone can do it.
I think Forest Green Rovers, I've become a fan recently, and
because
of Dale and the whole strategy around it. They're going to build a new stadium completely out of wood. It's a really interesting case if you don't know it, because as you said, it's in the football world. They're in the fourth tier of English.
They did. They got relegated twice in a row, but they went up once before that. But they're at the top of the league at the moment in the National League, which is like fourth, I think.
Becoming relegated has nothing to do with having to eat vegan food.
No, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
We won't go into
that's to do with managers being poached.
Yeah. Going back to the European Championships, so you had a plan of 105 actions. It's really nice. It was recognized by the UCI. So actually, the event got the Climate Action Award last year. So it was really recognized as a prime example of how you can make a sporting event more sustainable, which is great. But let's still remain critical. I mean, you kind of acknowledge yourself. You're on a journey. To you, Claire, you did the evaluation. How do you think this event performed on a sustainability level, and especially because your view is more broad and compared to what festivals are doing? Because I think the sports world still needs to catch up to what festivals are doing.
Yeah, I think in some respects, yes. In some ways, sports are more advanced in their, I suppose, their reach to people. But that's another topic. So for this event, it's an open perimeter, and it was spread pretty much across two sites because of the fact that the start and the finish were in different places. So that presented a whole lot of extra challenges that a closed, contained site wouldn't have. So that makes it harder, for instance, in relation to waste management, or more so in relation to gathering data. And that's something that that definitely can be improved across the board for all events, is really putting in those methods early doors for how you're going to collect data, integrating it into things like your accreditation systems or your payment systems, not adding extra layers of work, but just making it integrated. Right. Another element is kind of beyond the event to a degree, because it involves collaboration with other sectors. For example, green energy. And this is something that we've been working with a lot in recent years, where we've got battery. We're also looking to build grid connections into sites where they don't have them, so we don't depend on diesel generators anymore, which is what most events are still depending upon. But that requires collaboration with energy companies and with whoever it is that owns the land, and with whoever it is that gives the permits for grid connections, for instance. And it's something that the whole events industry in every country needs to really get those partnerships going. We've got into a position where we've found a green energy company, Toerisme, that's willing to invest into the grid connection so they can make the money back over time by selling the electricity, and then collaborations with the mayors, with the combined authorities, with the local authorities, and the events who can provide the data of usage so that we can transform those spaces so they can be more easily serviced.
Yeah. You want to add something?
No.
No. Okay.
Just
Because you already mentioned measuring. You did a CO2 emissions calculations. That's not often easy because you need to get data from all different suppliers and stuff. We don't have time to really dive into it too deeply, but I don't know the percentage here. Like, mobility is always the biggest factor. My question here is, like, if you know it by heart, tell us, like, what's the percentage of mobility in the CO2 emissions calculations? And then two, like, how do you tackle the mobility problem? You've mentioned already that you had a cycling route, but is there anything more that we can do in general, because that's the biggest problem that we're facing?
Yeah, exactly. Mobility and transportation. I'm trying to have a look at Zoe. I think it was somewhere in the 90s percent.
Yeah, so there's three different elements to it as well. I suppose the production and crew element, the audience element, and then the actual athletes and visiting teams as well. And some of that is quite hard to get hold of, but even just the production element was around 40%, I think, yeah. It's huge.
Yeah, it is indeed huge, and it's something that we're trying to look at. What we take with from the report from A Greener Future was that we were very much focusing on fans, but slightly forgot also we did communicate, but not as much as we did towards fans, to press, federations, the teams that were coming down, volunteers and stuff. So that's something we need to focus more on, where we can still where there's still room for improvement. And obviously try to influence everyone as much as possible, try to reach out with sustainable options wherever possible. And so there's definitely still room for improvement, but obviously it's hard to control, and some is nearly inevitable in the event industry, because you got people coming from...
Yeah, especially when you're organizing, like, European championships, but especially world championships.
Yeah, we got world championships coming up.
There's people coming in from all over the world. That's something you just can't can't not have.
We had that issue with Adele playing in Germany. The Adele residency in Germany, and
in Munich, was it Munich?
I'm not sure where exactly.
Okay.
I mean, it was massive, impressive. Hats off, like, technical production and what they pulled off. But it meant that everybody flew to Germany to see Adele, and she just stayed there. It would have actually been better if she'd moved around with her production rather than, well, not that production, probably. But if she'd moved around rather than the tens of thousands of people moving around, it would be better.
Yeah. Maya, so you now have this very elaborate report with lots of advice. Is there anything, like what are you doing with it now? How is that influencing your general sustainability strategy? And are you taking those pointers into other events? Like, what does that look for you now?
Yeah, as I said already, the report was incredibly valuable to us. For Flanders Classics, sustainability has been a core value for quite a while. Just before COVID, we really started focusing on that. So we had taken some steps already, but we knew there was still a lot of room for improvement. You already mentioned Paradise City, the festival. There's other events where that seemed the holy grail to us. I'm really impressed by the work they do. So we try to get in that direction. So we're definitely taking all the feedback that we got from A Greener Future towards the next events. We use it as a blueprint. What happened concrete since then was that we teamed up with Eneco, a green energy supplier in Belgium.
Yeah, you just
so
mentioned
to get to get more more green energy on site. We also started working with Tapio, a local company that are measuring our carbon footprint annually. So because that's, I think, very important, as you already said as well. Measuring what gets measured gets managed, or meten is weten, like we like to say it in Dutch, but it's really true.
Yeah.
You can't set any targets, you can't move forward if you don't have a benchmark. You need, and we want to be CO2 neutral by 2035. Okay. So we need to start getting that data. We need to start working on the reduction strategy, not even talking about compensation, because that's also one of the next steps. So we need to, well, I think it's great what we've been doing, but there's still a lot of room for improvement, and so that feedback was very useful to us. Definitely also because it came from different angles and a different background. So we're sometimes a bit very focused on certain.
Yeah, but it's great. Like you really generate impact when you're kind of trying, or when you're starting to implement some of the measures here in all of your events. I think that's one. And then, like you said, like there's so many great examples out there. Like Paradise City is one, but there's other examples all around the world. And I think it's. I mean, you don't have to invent everything yourself. Like there's a lot of really good examples out there, and that's why we've also have the QR code here. So when I think you can download the whole sustainability report plan. I think that's a link to the plan of the the European Championships. Because there's a lot of really important advice there, or pointers, or actions that you can just take into any event. I think we need to wrap up. Just last question to both of you. What can everybody here learn from that particular event, or from any event? Just one or two things you really want to get across. I say, look, this is, if you don't know where to start, this is where you need to start, and this is something that you can easily implement to make your event sustainable.
I think one of the key challenges to me is not to be intimidated by the scale of the challenge if you start with it, because as already said, sustainability and trying to do well can be very overwhelming, because it's you need to think of so many, you need to get everyone aligned, motivated. So don't get too overwhelmed. Just start doing something. Right. Even if you're failing, at least you try to do something. Anything is better than nothing, I think. And I think that's the direction we need to go. We'll all need to go that way. We'll be forced, I think, very soon in the future. So just start wherever. Indeed, have a look at other events. If we can help out someone in the room who's having questions about sustainability or our approach, we're always here to help. I think having a dedicated person following it, everything up, coordinating, to get everything from theory into reality, measuring. No
matter how hard it is.
Yeah, and as Claire already said before as well, finding that balance between actions that really have impacts and reduce your impact, but also the visible ones, the nudging, like to get those people on board so the fans really start thinking about having a green battery, for example, in the back of the production will be great for your impact. But if it's not visible, like you need to get that message out to the people as well. So
that's sometimes interesting with solar panels, because solar panels don't generate that much energy for an event.
But just having them there,
it's visible.
Yeah. It just plants the seed in the people. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Some are a bit drunk.
Everybody can email Maya with advice. Maya.leyen@flandersclassics.be.
Counselling.
Yeah. Claire, last pointers for everybody?
I'd say start as early as possible. Don't leave it till the last minute. It's not an afterthought. Regardless of, the measuring's super important, but just set a target to stop burning diesel, to increase plant-based food and ban single-use plastics. That's a great start, and then do it. And I think also it's difficult, yes, but you're not going to be just forced in the future. You're going to be aided, because the transport sector has got targets to reduce their emissions and to transform to clean transport. The energy sector has targets. food sector less so, but we're working on that. And so everybody is pushing in the same direction, and events are actually one of the ways of being able to change culture, and that's one of our big obstacles. You know, we can change infrastructure, we can change industry, but there's a big cultural heart and minds thing happening right now that we really need to win for everybody's sake. So just have fun and do it.
That's a great message. Thank you very much.